All right, let's talk some Chad Muma for a second. We're going to start off with some statistics. So Chad Muma, some of you might be wondering, I don't know who that is, which is understandable. He was a third-round pick, the 70th overall selection. So if you're not a college guy or big into the draft, you might have never heard of him. But, he was a prospect that some people were very excited about. And if you look at his PFF grades in college, you can kind of see why, especially that run defense grade, which was fantastic. Pass rush, not so much. But again, he's an off-ball linebacker, not the end of the world. And coverage, still good. Not great, but, it's a fine coverage grade if you're drafting him to be a run defense kind of linebacker, which is what I think Jacksonville did. You see the year-by-year grades from 2021. He was outstanding, but that is definitely kind of his 1 year. He was a one-year wonder, certainly, and even like the snaps, he had more snaps in 2021 than he did in 2020 and 2019 combined, which is, maybe there's a correlation there. But the main thing is, you might be wondering, well, it's PFF, who cares? I do have to say, this stuff does translate very well. Linebackers, that is one of the positions, off-ball linebackers, where if you can get a grade above 90, that there's a drop-off from 90 to below 90. Now, if it's like 85 or 75, that doesn't seem to matter too much, but the getting above 90, there's a bit of a gap there. So that's promising. So third round pick with some promise. That's who Chad Muma is. We finally got to see him play in an NFL game. So let's talk about what we saw in that NFL game. So we'll start off with this play, and we're going to show the good and the bad, which is why we're showing this play, because it's both. So a center is going to get up to block the linebacker, Chad Muma, here. So it's going to be a run to the top of the screen. This is how this play is going to work. Linebacker gets up, tries to block Muma. I just said linebacker again. I don't know why center and linebacker now mean the same thing to me. I apologize. Let's move on. The center is going to get up to try to block Muma. Anyways, as you see, the center, who is not a linebacker, goes up to block Muma, and at this point, you can see how this could work either way. This is kind of like I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if Muma's going to be able to get over and make a tackle on the halfback. Is it going to work? This is tough. But watch Muma's move here. He's able to sidestep that center, and, he's did a pretty good job there. So right off the bat, good stuff, I would say. That was against Andre James, who, listen, isn't an all-world center by any means, but he's the first-team guy on the Raiders roster. The Raiders are going to have him start, and not in like he's a, fringe NFL player who they have to start given a bad, situation. Like, he's like a fine center. I think PFF had him graded at, as the 20th best center last year. So not ideal, but not horrible either. But a good move by Muma. He then is just going to completely fail at making a tackle on Josh Jacobs. So good and bad there. And again, it's Josh Jacobs, right? He does that to people. That's certainly fair enough. But at the same time, I think Jaguars fans would say it would have been really nice if he was able to finish off and make that tackle, even though the tackle got made anyways, in terms of the game. But we're obviously evaluating the players, not so much, who cares about the game itself. It's preseason. But anyways, let's move on to this play. This is another interesting example of, again, it's going to be James going up to block Muma on this play. That's what's supposed to happen here. But again, watch how Muma's going to do a great job of just being able to sidestep James, and he gets over to where if he had to make a tackle, he would have made a tackle. Luckily, he didn't have to. The play was made for him before he got there. But he did a good job at sort of being the guy who he was never going to be able to create a tackle for a loss on that play, right? I don't care if you're Ray Lewis. That just wasn't something that was in the cards for him on that given play. But what he could have done was, damage control, which he put himself in a great position to be in if he had to. So I think a good play from him. And again, this one's another play that I would certainly say is a good play, where that's where he is. That's the guy who's going to block him. It's the fullback going to run up to block Muma. Watch what happens. So as you see, quarterback gives the ball to the halfback, and right here, there is a big collision that looks like it's about to take place. However, Muma kind of sidesteps the collision a little bit and puts himself still in the gap to where he was in position to make a tackle. And so this is one of the things that I feel like Muma has done a really good job at, especially in the running game, of when guys are trying to block him, get up to the second level and make that block, he's just able to sort of, get around the block while at the same time not taking himself out of the play. Sometimes you try to sidestep a block, but in doing that, you actually just make it easier for the ball carrier. They can just run to the other side. But Muma, I think, still does a good job of putting himself in the gap he needs to be in while avoiding a block. And finally, one more play. This is going to be, again, you're going to have a center who's going to try and go up and block him. This is actually Dylan Parham, another rookie who I made a video about him. I'm not sure which one's going to be out first, but, be on the lookout for that. But another guy who had a good game himself, Parham did. But anyways, it's going to be a pitch to the bottom of the screen, and just watch how quick Muma gets there. So look, as you see, I mean, he's going to do a great job of getting over there. The center had no chance of making the block, and he does make the tackle. His tackling wasn't, outstanding, but he makes the tackle, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how impressive it looks. It matters if you're making tackles or not. And so I thought he played well. I don't really know much about his coverage because all we have is broadcast footage, which you can only tell so much in coverage. You can tell a little bit sometimes, but can't say too much on that, which is probably the biggest concern. But he passed the first test of stopping the run well, which you're brought in to be a linebacker who can stop the run. So doing that well, in your first preseason game, hey, doesn't mean you're going to be a superstar, but it means you passed the first test, which is nice to see. So yeah, I think that he's passed the first test, right? That's kind of how I talk about with preseason in general, because everyone, some people will say preseason, who cares? Completely unimportant. And I like to think of it as that. It's the first test. It's the fact that you're, playing well at the preseason level in the run-stopping game, which is what you were brought on for, leads us to believe there is at least a chance that you're going to come in the NFL and be good at it. If you're sucking in the preseason, the chances of you being good in the regular season just seem smaller to me. So because of that, I do think that it's it's a good first step. Now, again, what are we going to expect from Muma? One of the nice things is the Jacksonville Jaguars are not ready to compete right away. So because of that, they can kind of take their time with him and say, hey, let's figure out the best way to use you, put you in different situations, give you reps, even if you're not playing great right away. But it's promising to see that he is playing well right away. And, they signed a linebacker as well. They drafted a linebacker, guy I really like, Devin Lloyd, in the first round. So clearly linebacker is a position they value, but it might be nice if hey, if there's a 3rd and 1, you want a linebacker to come in, he might be the guy to use in that situation. So that's, I think, something that's very fascinating. But again, you can't get too ahead of yourself either. It's just preseason, works both ways. You can't say it's just preseason when your team loses, but then say, yay, we won when your team wins. You have to be consistent. And one thing that I have consistently said is I do actually think that these reps are important. There's just not that many of them, so you can only take away so much due to the small sample size. It's kind of how I feel here, especially when I don't really know how his coverage was because I only saw half the field on those plays. So because of it, his running game seemed to be good, but the rest remains to be seen. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.